We're broadcasting live, and of course, this is the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. My next guest is Michael Shoesmith, and of course, he hails out of Canada. He's our Canadian correspondent. Started with us the day we began this program many years ago, and now he's a co-host and the editor of the PNN News and Ministry Network and all of its properties. He's also an author. He's also a licensed private investigator in the nation of Canada. He's all over the United States as well. He's in the States a lot. Mike, you're broadcasting today from probably the PNN office in Toronto area, right?
Yes, our Canadian headquarters here, Carl.
So listen, there's been this horrendous church attack in Pakistan, and you say that there are some horrendous connections, important connections for us to know about that. And then, by the way, folks, Mike and I are going to talk about Christmas in just a moment. You don't want to miss that. All right, Mike, go ahead.
Well, listen, I was driving down the road the other day, and I was listening to the news, and then they started talking about this church attack, this terror attack against the church in Islamabad, Pakistan. The first thing that came to mind was, of course, it's a horrible thing. People died, and many others were injured. More on that in a moment. But the first thing that came to mind was, wait a minute, there's a church in Pakistan? How's that possible? 2 suicide bombers attacked a church packed with worshipers on Sunday in southwestern Pakistan, killing at least 9 people and injuring at least 35 others, several critically. Officials said the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, claimed responsibility for the attack in Quetta, the capital of Baluchistan province in the country's southwest. The group's Amaq news agency posted a statement online Sunday that said attackers had stormed a church in Quetta but gave no further details. The assault raised concerns about security of religious minorities, especially Christians, Carl, in a country with a dismal record when it comes to the treatment and protection of religious minorities. Pakistani officials denied that ISIS had a presence in the country. However, even though the terrorist group had claimed responsibility for several other attacks in recent years, law enforcement agencies have badly failed in protecting common citizens and minorities in particular, said a Christian political and social activist based there. December is a month of Christian religious rituals, Mr. Gill said. Christians make up. Now, here's where my ears really peaked up, because you hear about all these attacks, and you just kind of get numb to it, right? I was listening to this story, and this is where I really peaked up, because it says in this New York Times article, Christians make up 2% of the country's population of about 198 million. Most of them are marginalized and perform menial jobs, okay? So I'm going to end it there. I'm not going to read the entire article for you. You can go to NewYorkTimes.com and read it there. But here's the thing, Carl. And as sad as the loss of Christian life is, when I did my brother-in-law's funeral a few years ago, I stood up in front of the mourners and I said that if my brother-in-law, Gary, could speak from the grave, he would say that the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I am not dead. I am alive and well. Thank you very much. Okay, because he was a believer. All right, and believers, we don't die permanent death. We don't mourn as those without hope. The Bible says, right? So we do mourn their loss, but that's our loss. Our loss is their gain. I mean, they gain heaven, right? So as tragic as that is, there's a bigger story here, and there's a lot to unpack here. So the first thing that leaps to mind is that this story, what happened in Pakistan, lays waste to one of the major pillars of atheism. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but one of the major pillars of atheism is this. Everyone is born an atheist, and then if they become religious, they simply embrace the religion of their parents or the surrounding culture, right? Mm-hmm. That is one of the major pillars of atheism. That it's just a parental passing of the torch, so to speak, or a religious cultural acceptance of what's happening around you, right? Yeah. But only 2%. Now, these people are in. This article is based out of Islamabad, Pakistan. Okay, the cultural narrative there is Islamic. The parents of many of these people are probably Muslim, okay? These people, we're getting reports out of Muslim countries of Jesus showing up to these Muslim people and these Muslims giving their lives to Jesus Christ. This is a very real thing. And you heard from the article that these people are marginalized and perform menial jobs. I mean, and here's another thing. there is that aspect of it, the laying waste to the atheist mantra of atheist to religious cultural dynamics, but also this has an end time dynamic associated with it. What does Matthew 24:14 say? This gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations. Not every pair of ears out there, but all nations. Mm-hmm. And then the end will come. Mm-hmm. Well, what does it look like? What does the landscape, the global landscape, look like as far as the gospel going to all nations? Well, guess what? Yeah, the gospel has gone into all nations.
Yeah.
It's there now. There are 50 Christians in Pitcairn Island, but guess what? That's 100% of the population. there's only 50 people in the Pitcairn Islands. But get this one. Let's back up here. North Korea. Would you believe that North Korea has 406,000 Christians? Can you believe that?
That's amazing. I know 100,000 of them are in prison.
In prison, right. But, these people, they are facing annihilation over there. Yeah. But the numbers keep swelling. 406,000, that's 1.7% in China as well.
Yeah.
Iran has 380,000 Christians.
Yeah.
That's 0.4%.
Yeah.
But the gospel has gone out into all nations.
And listen, and you mentioned it a moment ago, these Jesus dreams by the Muslims. Al Jazeera, this is documented in one of my books. It's either When the Lion Roars or Be Thou Prepared, maybe in both of them. Al Jazeera had to admit that 6 million Muslims a year on the continent of Africa alone are turning to Jesus Christ. And they also did a big report that many of them, they didn't say how many, I don't know what percentage, are coming to the Lord because of visions and dreams. Jesus is appearing to them like Paul on the Damascus Road, and they're facing death because of these dreams and visions that are so real, and they're surrendering their life to Christ. Al Jazeera reported on that.
Well, no, it's absolutely amazing. But in Saudi Arabia, 1.5 million Christians in Saudi Arabia. That's a shocking number.
Yes,
5% of the population in that country is Christian. But getting back to North Korea, 500,000 Christians in North Korea. In North Korea, there is no proselytizing allowed. There's no missionaries allowed in North Korea.
Right.
You're not allowed to go around handing out Bibles or preaching the gospel in North Korea. Yeah. Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Well, God himself is showing up in North Korea and talking to these people, and there's 500,000 Christians in North Korea. It really is amazing. The gospel has gone out into all nations, and then what happens? The end happens, right?
Yeah.
There's 2.5 million Christians in Pakistan right now.
Right.
That's an amazing number in a predominantly Muslim country whose flag is the crescent moon.
Yeah.
By the way,
right.
And this also lays waste, by the way, to the swoon theory, the theory that Jesus simply, the Case for Christ by Lee Strobel.
Uh-huh.
Lee Strobel was an atheist. Who he was a reporter, a star reporter with the Chicago Tribune, and his wife got saved. His wife was an atheist. She got saved, and she tried to lead him to Christ, and he was a militant atheist. He set about to do the investigative work, figure this out, to reconvert his wife back to atheism. He ended up doing all the journalistic work, trying to get to the bottom of this and all this, and his main line of attack was the swoon theory, that Jesus was a real person who simply swooned on the cross. They took him down and formed this Jesus cult, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so he did the investigative work. Lee Strobel discovered that this is in fact impossible, the swoon theory, and Lee Strobel got saved because of it. Yeah. And so this really does lay waste to this atheist, pillar of swoon theory, because here we have the first century in defense of the faith, including all of the apostles that we know of. But now here we have Christians in North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, willing to die for their faith because of this Jesus, not only whom they believe in, but this Jesus whom they have personally met, who guides them through their daily walk with him, and who protects them. And they take all the promises of the Bible. I don't even know how North Koreans get a copy of the Bible. Is it possible to believe in Jesus Christ without ever seeing a Bible, Carl?
Well, according to... Go ahead. I thought you were really asking me. Go ahead.
According to reports out of China, these Chinese people, they memorize portions of the Bible, then they burn it or dispose of it somehow, and then each person carries around, one chapter or one portion of the Bible, and they each get together and have a joint Bible study based on memory, because they're not allowed to have copies of the Bible.
Yeah.
So, but there are people. Listen, I got saved, Carl, before ever reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I met Jesus Christ, gave him my life, then started reading the Bible and reading about these glorious promises that are in the Word for me.
Absolutely.
Which have proven themselves out in my life in dramatic detail, and so then now we discover that all of this end time prophecy coming to pass in shocking clarity before our very eyes in our generation. And I look at the Bible and I so revere that book mainly because of the fulfilled prophecy in that book, including what Lee Strobel discovered as prophecies regarding Jesus Christ. After discovering those prophecies, Lee Strobel got on his knees and begged God for forgiveness, and now got up on his 2 feet and is now serving the Lord with all of his heart, reaching millions with the gospel of Jesus Christ. It really is amazing.
It is amazing. And speaking of...